as the argument goes, this has already been investigated several times, this whole Benghazi thing. Why do we need to do it again? Well, the only reason they knew Republicans just want to make Hillary Clinton look bad. That's what they're all worried about and said this shouldn't happen. Now Democrats are rejoicing, saying, well, she looked good. And she looked, what did she just call her? Statesman-like. Is this all about just the politics? What about the actual investigation? What's it showing? What about the answers to the questions or lack thereof? I want to find out, why didn't we come to the aid of these 4 American heroes who were killed in Benghazi, Libya on September 11th, 2012? That's what this is about. And if anybody is making it about something other than that, it's the Democrats. It's Hillary Clinton herself and her cheerleaders making it about the politics, as they accuse the investigators of doing. Well, some questions now. We heard Bart, our Democrat out in Birch Bay, just comment about this before our news, which he said the same thing that he said multiple times. Many people have said, well, there are already all these investigations. This has already been investigated. There's no need for another investigation. Really? Well, some new questions about those investigations being raised. Were they really so impartial? Joining us right now with the Washington Free Beacon reporter Alana Goodman. Thanks for being here this morning, Alana. Talk about what you've found in looking into some of these other investigations.
Sure. Yeah. No, the investigation.
I think we're just doomed on cell phone connections this morning. Alana, are you still with us? We just lost your signal there for a second. Alex, I think we lost Alana altogether. So maybe let's take another stab at connecting her on the phone. Again, just lost a connection with our guest, Alana Goodman, reacting this morning, talking about these other investigations into what happened in Benghazi. There was this group called the Benghazi Accountability Review Board. It was formed after that assault on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi. It issued a report in December 2012. It questioned the leadership of the State Department, but ultimately faulted just 4 mid-level employees in the State Department. Why was that? Well, we're getting some new details now from Alana, and hopefully we can make this connection here in just a moment. She's dug up really what was going on behind the scenes with these other investigations. And it doesn't sound good. So I'm not sure what leg they have to stand on to say, well, this has already been investigated. We don't need to investigate it again. These previous investigations, if some of this stuff is true, were not real investigations. They just weren't fair and impartial. There were people involved with a lot of conflicts of interest. And by the way, a big thank you again to our guest first half, Van Hipp, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Army, former Principal Deputy General Counsel of the U.S. Navy, and author of the book, The New Terrorism, How to Fight It and Defeat It. Just wanted to mention that again. If you want to check it out, of course, it's on Amazon, plus available at other outlets. I see that Alex is in the other room now, our friendly producer here on the morning show, trying to make this connection work with Alana Goodman, who has a lot of, and I'm just scanning her article here on this problem that has been uncovered with some of the previous investigations into Benghazi. It's pretty damning. For instance, what I mentioned just a moment ago, the Benghazi Accountability Review Board. And Alex is giving it. We've got her on the phone.
Line 1.
Line 1. Okay, here we go. I think we've got a connection now. Alana is back with us. Alana, we've just been talking about your piece on these other Benghazi investigations. Talk about what you found. We've just been touching on the Benghazi Accountability Review Board. maybe not so impartial as they would like us to believe?
Well, one of the interesting things that came out of Cheryl Mills' testimony before the Benghazi Committee, which was in early September, but the transcript of which was not released until earlier this week. The Accountability Review Board that was put together to investigate the State Department response right after the attack was apparently in touch with Cheryl Mills, according to her. She was able to read their draft of their final report before it went out and suggest changes on it. And she says during her testimony that there was a back and forth with staff about these changes. So that, Republicans have questioned based on that the independence of the ARB. There were also concerns that the ARB did not have access to what the Benghazi Committee, the House Benghazi Committee, currently has access to, which was Hillary Clinton's emails, the Ambassador Stevens' emails that they just received, the committee just received this week, and the emails of her staff. So that is the argument that the House Select Committee is making for what, the purpose of its existence, that these other investigations did not have access to the same materials that they have, and so that's why this is a necessary investigation.
Well, just more evidence, to the point that this isn't an apples and apples comparison. These are apples and oranges. If you're comparing this current House Select Committee investigating the attack in Benghazi to some of these other investigations, it's not even a fair comparison. They aren't even on the same grid here. You mentioned Cheryl Mills. It should be pointed out Cheryl Mills was Clinton's chief of staff at the time in the State Department. And just to reiterate what you just pointed out there, just so people understand this, the chief of staff of Hillary Clinton and people inside the State Department were reviewing an investigation of them, of the State Department. And they got to have input on a review of themselves. I mean, that's insane.
Well, it definitely raises questions about the independence of that. So, and in addition to that, I mean, one of the other things that Congressman Gowdy, who runs the House Select Committee on Benghazi, has said is his committee so far, they've interviewed over 50 people, many who were not interviewed in the past. Most of the stuff was behind closed doors, actually. Hillary Clinton was one of the few people who, testified publicly. And they've reviewed over 50,000 documents that, most of which were not reviewed by any previous investigation. So, he's saying this is definitely a necessary thing. And, Democrats, on the other hand, are trying to paint this as partisan. But, it seems like they have definitely gotten more information than others.
What's partisan? What's really lacking partiality? It sounds like these previous investigations, not the current one. We're talking with Alana Goodman right now with the Washington Free Beacon. She's uncovered some of this stuff. And Alana, I know you watched quite a bit of the testimony yesterday with Hillary Clinton on the hot seat there. Did any of this stuff about the previous investigations come up?
Well, I thought like the big news from the investigation, there were a couple of things that were new that, we hadn't known before. One of them was that Hillary Clinton had a phone call with, this was just hours after the Benghazi attack, she had a phone call with the Egyptian prime minister where she said the attack was not in response to the video, this anti-Islam video, and that there was no protest going on, that this was a terrorist attack by a group that was affiliated with Al-Qaeda. And that was, obviously contradicts the narrative that the State Department and the rest of the Obama administration put out for weeks after the Benghazi attack.
Especially those famous appearances by Susan Rice on all those Sunday talk shows after the fact. They were lying to the American people, and what the shows that came out yesterday is they knew they were lying to the American people about this.
So, I mean, that's what it suggests, that she was aware of different information, and saying things to the public that were misleading. So that I thought that was a major new piece of news to come out of that. And then there was also, she had emailed Chelsea Clinton also saying that this was an al-Qaeda attack by an al-Qaeda-like group. This was, the evening that the attack occurred. So, you're saying this on the one hand privately, but then you're making different statements in public. I think that's a problem that, she wasn't really able to respond to that. The other piece of information that came out was that she said that Ambassador Chris Stevens did not have her personal email address, so he wasn't able to contact her over email. And this also contradicts statements that she's made about how she was in close contact with Ambassador Stevens, that people were able to access her. It raises questions about why, because Libya was such a big policy issue for her, why did the ambassador there not even have her email address? Why was he even able to contact her? So I think that Republicans, did a good job highlighting that.
And there were some naysayers there yesterday, too. Talk a little bit about that. One that I caught was Adam Smith, the Democrat on this panel. He's from out here in Washington State. Basically, he spent his time pontificating about how he thought they shouldn't be there in the first place.
Yeah, that's been, Democrats have been obviously pushing this narrative for the last week or so, and I do think it has been effective. I think that Republicans were careful yesterday to avoid any, overt partisanship. They, and tried to focus their questions for the most part on Benghazi, on the attack. I do think that people will still be noting that they did focus a lot of their time discussing Clinton's relationship with Sidney Blumenthal, which, he was a longtime friend of hers, and he was apparently advising her on Libya. And I think that Democrats will use that to point out that, this is more of a political issue rather than an issue about the Benghazi attacks themselves. So, I don't think there were any major benefits from Republicans that came out of the hearing. They didn't catch Clinton in any major inconsistency that she wasn't able to talk her way out of. Clinton didn't get rattled like she did at we've seen her at previous hearings when she said, the famous comment, "What difference at this point does it make?" There were no major negative sound bites like that. So that was a benefit from her. So, if you have to say who gets the political win here, I think it's probably Clinton. I think they're pretty happy with how it turned out.
Alana Goodman with the Washington Free Beacon with us this morning. And also pointing out this morning, not all of these details only, but more about the background leading into this investigation by the House Special or Select Committee on Benghazi. It's a different kind of investigation, folks, and to say, well, this has already been investigated. It has not been, and what happened in Benghazi has not been investigated the way it's being investigated now, and Alana's reporting just illustrates that further. Alana, thanks so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
676